Okay. Well, I was a little anxious when Natalie asked me to talk about treasure. I'm a real estate person. We have a reputation in our industry. I was like, oh God, am I going to get heckled for talking about treasure? But yeah, I love what you said about another person's trash is another person's treasure. That's sort of been my reputation in the industry of taking things that are a little overlooked, a little derelict, and trying to bring them back to life. Michael Alley from Alley Pointer Architecture, he a long time ago said to me, the most responsible thing anyone can do is take an existing building and redo it. So you're not scraping it, taking it to a landfill. It's more expensive to do, but if you can figure it out, it's the more responsible thing to do. So he's always sort of challenged me with that. So my partner, John, and I, we do not have children. We think a lot about, like, what did we do this all for? And it's hopefully at some point to make impact and leave it kind of in a better way than when we started working on things, and everything's not perfect. But that's sort of what I have in mind when I think about treasure and spaces. But I think it's also important to understand a little bit about me, and I think stories are more meaningful if you get a little bit of, like, who is this person? Natalie gave a lot away about my quirkiness. So I started using these cocktail napkins that I put my name on to write things out. I've done a lot of things sketched out on cocktail napkins, and they work. So ideas and deals. So I use this one to say I was born in Fort, and I could never spell it when I was a kid, Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And still as an adult, I have to sometimes go, did I spell it right? So that was my little ode to my parents having me born on a military base that nobody knows of and nobody knows how to spell. So I have spelled it wrong multiple times and nobody questions it. This is me as little Bubs. We were a military family. My dad was in the reserves. He was in the Army, then the Army Reserves, but we moved around a ton. So this was me and my grandparents sink. And I love this photo because it's, like, so wholesome, and you probably can't see it very well, but there's a bottle of Jack Daniels. Guessing is my assumption. So we moved a lot. My mom and my dad are very opposite in the way they think and do things. My mom's an artist. My dad is an attorney. So I have, like, this crazy influence growing up of, like, the way to think about things, which was a gift. As an adult, it was a gift. As a child, it was sometimes confusing. But I often haven't thought of myself as, and I'll talk about this a little more, like, through my career in real estate. Like, as I went into it, especially commercial real estate, when I started, you were supposed to be a certain way. And so I've never really thought, oh gosh, I'm a creative person anymore. I kind of cast myself into this box of, you are a professional and not creative. And then at one point in time, which I'll talk about, I was like, that's a stupid thought. It took a long time to get there. So I'm really thankful to be here in the room with all of you and be counted amongst you. So thank you. Let's see. So I love Omaha, but I did want to leave it at one point. We moved here, I was like 4 years old. We lived in Ralston, then we moved into Dundee, got, like, the worst house on a busy street, so my parents could afford to move into it. But it was great. Loved growing up here. Influenced a lot of how I think about Omaha, kind of moving around and being in different parts. But then growing up in Dundee was a really cool thing. As I got, in my end of high school, I thought, okay, I want to explore other opportunities. I got into some pretty creative schools across the country. One of them was Skidmore College, and they had a program where you could do, like, crazy stuff. Like, this guy I read about took a barn from his family's property, disassembled it, moved it, put it back together, made it into a space that others could use. And that was what he did for college. I was like, this is mind-blowing. That's so cool. That's what I want to do. And then the day after I graduated high school, my parents got divorced, and I couldn't go. So I was like, what am I going to do? Where do I go? So for some reason, I landed at Creighton. I don't know why. I say that way. It just was like, well, I'll go there and figure out what I'm going to do. I thought maybe like the business component of what they did could get me towards real estate. I always knew I wanted to do something with real estate and spaces. So back then, also UNO did not have the real estate program that they have today. We would have done that in a heartbeat. But I didn't get that opportunity. I went to Creighton. I started in this entrepreneurial program, and then they like midstream took it away. Which whatever business decision they had to make, and they're like, you get to go into marketing, accounting. They were shifting their management program, so they didn't really let people into it anymore. They were reformatting the entrepreneur and management, so or finance. They were like, those are the three you should choose from. So I picked finance, which was fine. It served me well. My teachers, I had some really good professors who were like, hey, you need some help to get to where you're going, so we'll help you, which was really cool. I used to get in arguments with the dean, and then finally one day he just said, just sit in the back of my class. So they did a lot to help me. I also like to joke, so I went to go walk for graduation, and they called me hours before, and they're like, we have made a giant mistake. You don't have enough credits to graduate. And it was an elective credit. Somehow I got signed up for a teaching class and never went to it because I didn't know I had to go. And they were like, you've got to take more classes. So I, as argumentative as I can be sometimes, I argued with them, and I went to Metro, because it was an elective credit. I took an Excel class. So sometimes I joke that I just got a degree in Excel. I do have this thing that we had to dig out to take a picture of. So I ended up in Omaha. And as part of my journey, as the professor I mentioned, he was like, let's get you an internship. So we called and called and called and called people. And the only person who really answered the phone was CreativeMornings. So I went in and met with him. He was like, yeah, come back on May 1st. Okay, what does this work or what? And he was like, just come back. So I came back on May 1st and thought they had a job maybe. So here's my little timeline. May 1st of 2000, I started as an intern at CreativeMornings Real Estate. I worked there full-time all summer, answered the phones half the day, filed, worked with accounting, did whatever they needed. And then as I graduated, shortly after I graduated, I became a full-time property manager. We had two, and one of the ladies just never showed back up for work. So like, here you go, take that job. Okay. I can do this. So I did that, and then 2003, I started doing sales. I got licensed to do sales before that, but I was nervous and scared, and I got to do things right. So I waited a little bit, and then over time, we grew our property management company portion of the company a lot. It went kind of crazy, which is exciting. I was part of growing that. And in 2009, PJ made me president of the company. If you think about economic cycles and when that was, I was like, oh gosh. Does he want me to leave? Is it like that first day? This is a maybe. But we were really lucky, kept growing. We grew every quarter after that. Kept bringing in property management, hiring people who in the industry were getting laid off, who didn't know what they were going to do. We were in a really cool place to bring those folks in to work with us. So as time went on, things were steady. We were known for doing commercial sales, property management. Our property management was houses, single family houses you can rent, and then homeowner associations, and then just other normal stuff you think of for property management. And truthfully, I got a little bored. I was like, okay, this is cool. It's coasting, but like now what? What are we going to do? So the little dashed line represents a time where I was like, I got to do something different. And that's when so Susan and Ryan. So I was thinking about our company, and we do all this stuff that impacts folks in houses, but we aren't known for that in a way where we can help people buy a house. So all my friends who were buying houses was like, who are you working with? It was crazy how many of them said, Susan Clark, she's the best. I love Susan Clark. Gosh, how is she getting all these people? I was really mad because she was getting all my gay friends to buy houses from her. I was like, what is wrong with you? She's just awesome. Okay. So Susan and I connected in 2013. In 2019, Susan and I bought the company from PJ, and I became CEO. As Natalie mentioned, Susan's the president of our company. So this is Susan and I trying to tackle the world. She has been a major impact on my life and really fun person to say, let's shake this company up and do some other crazy stuff. So she brought in a residential element to our company. When she joined us, maybe had 10 agents, 5 of them got really pissed off at what we did and they left. And so we had 5. But we were fine with that. We were like, this gotta be, you gotta be on the train or not, and it's fine to not be. So we today have about 65 agents. We're which sounds like a big growth number, but kind of in the real estate world, we're a smaller company. We're boutique. We've done that on purpose. We don't necessarily want to just grow exponentially. We really know a lot about most of the people we work with. We know about their families. We know that Julie Kelly's daughter is leasing a space for her business because it's bustling and growing. Like, that's what we want to know about our people that we get to work with. And we just feel like it's more meaningful and more productive. We don't have a lot of people who just come to say, I'm a realtor and not do anything. So that's been our mission. And then we started doing sort of crazy other things with the company, like starting an event management division. People are like, why as a real estate company do you do that? We do that because spaces don't just come to life. They need activation. They need effort put into them. So we really believe in that. And then the future of development of housing also involves a lot of activation. And so we want to be ready to be a player in that. If you go to a lot of larger markets, you see that widespread happening. But in Omaha, it's not so much yet. We're getting ready to fill that market, part of the market right now. So another thing Susan and I did with the company is said, let's talk about our core values before we do anything. Like, who are we? What are we doing? Where are we going? So we actually did 13 core values. We did a 13-month long session about each core value. It was sort of a nightmare, but it was cool in a way because our whole team was involved with like each core value. What does it mean? We had events around it. We got to the end and we was like, this is too many, it's painful. So our 14th month, we narrowed it down to 6 core values. A lot of them said the same things. So I won't, in the essence of time, I won't go through each of them. I mean, enriched community, we love and live in is one that a lot of people in our group know. One that's ringing true to me lately is the stay true to ourselves. I feel like for me lately, I'm sort of at a point where I won't use the word bored because we're not bored. We're doing a lot, but it's trying to stay focused on what that a lot is, the impact it can make. I feel like we don't want to go too crazy, like, oh, we can go do even more stuff. We want to thoughtfully do what's the next thing for us. So that's where my headspace is right now. And so staying true to myself is really important because every time I've gone through this kind of like, hopefully thoughtful period, like I have to remember, stay true to myself. Like I mentioned, when I started in this industry, like it was mostly white men in their 30s and 40s, and then there were some of us that were younger, and like we were hustling, but there were no women really in the industry, and there were a handful, but like not like today. They definitely, had I been like, I'm gay and trying to sell real estate, I'm like, get out of the way. We can negotiate better than you, we're smarter than you. Like that was the attitude. And it's weird, it's changed completely. But I had to get to a point where I was like, I don't care about that. It is not important to me. I got to be myself. And once I did, it was like, things started to happen. So these are the things that I started to do to show who I was. We were hosting an open house in an old music studio. Did I just mess that up? In an old music studio, and we made it like a rock theme. And so I borrowed my friend Megan's wig. And then we also took a lot of vacant buildings and did Halloween parties for a while in them. They were super fun to do. It's hard to get an owner to like say, yeah, use my vacant building for a party. So we used our own when we could. So this is me and my partner John for one of our Halloweens. We can get really into it. It's pretty fun. So as I started to get into even a stronger space of like, who am I? Stay true to myself. The neighborhood of Little Bohemia was like screaming in my mind. I was fascinated with it, I loved it, and started to get to know the people there. So this photo of me is with one of the longtime servers at the Bohemian Cafe. We started going there in 2015, maybe, hanging out a lot, and got to know the family, got to talk to them about the neighborhood. They said, go talk to these two ladies, Karen and Mary. They were in the Development Association. Go talk to the family at Orsi's, which I grew up with and knew, but like, go talk to them. And so we started like getting to know people in the neighborhood. We were like making sure this was like something we wanted to do and they wanted us to have a voice in it. So people were really open to receiving, us and talking about what they wanted. So this other picture of the dirt here, these are, so the colorful window you might recognize is Archetype Coffee, building next door is Beercade 2, and then there's an old movie theater there. I think we've got some pictures. Yeah, this was the movie theater. So these were our first 3 buildings we bought. This was the first time I'd done any kind of project like this. So this movie theater, when we bought it, they cut the sloped floor and raised it and stacked stuff like tires and blocks underneath of it to hold it. So that's pretty cool. When we took that floor out, this was the back of the theater, and I couldn't find the photo, but the back of the theater here, this was the screen, and there was a wall behind it, which was common of those buildings. That wall fell through the screen at one point when we took the floor out. So this was you see these things, these were holding up the building. This wall kicked down 1.5 feet, and then that other wall kicked down about 6 inches. So most contractors in Omaha were like, we're not even going inside that building. You gotta tear it down. And we're not gonna tear it down either. So we finally found a contractor who was like, no, we can't let this thing fall down. The more financially responsible thing would have been to tear the building down. But I couldn't do it. It broke my heart. And the rest of our team, they were like, well, now we have a big hole in the back of the building. It's a window. So we made it a window. And there's a patio back there. So, and we got criticism about it, about this whole project. We also saved some little houses on the streets. If you're familiar with Tiny House, that was one of them. Literally, developers were like, what are you doing? This is stupid. Like, you should be making more money on this project. Get rid of those houses. Well, I don't care. We own them. We're not going to do that. Shut up. And they were sort of in similarly terrible condition. It wasn't the server on the photo that I showed before, but one of the ladies from the Bohemian Cafe lived in one of those houses for like 40 years. And the fact that it didn't fall in on her was miraculous. She was a super cool lady. When we first toured the house, we walked into her kitchen and we turned the corner and there was a kitchen table full of wigs. You walk into their headstands and wigs and we're like, oh my God, what is going on there? But that is the space that became the recording booth of Tiny House now. We just really wanted to take the opportunity to try to do something different here and think about this space under the theme of treasure. Like we love these spaces. Like they're so in our heart. And you're not supposed to do that with real estate. You're supposed to think about, I guess maybe like them as a spreadsheet and numbers, but that just is not who we are, and we couldn't do it. We fell in love with this project. What's pretty cool is the folks also that jumped on board and fell in love with it. Like Archetype Coffee was a big deal for us to get. There was literally nothing else down there other than the Bohemian Cafe. There was like no way for him to get business other than his own flag. And, the fact that he jumped in and committed, but he'll tell you to this day, it's because he also loved the area and loved the vision. When the Bohemian Cafe closed, that family did not put the buildings they owned on the market. They just had people wanting to buy them. So they talked to us. We told them the price we thought we could pay to save their buildings, redo them, honor them as much as we could, and keep them. So they had 15 different offers and came back to us and said, you guys are like in the middle financially. So we need you to pay more because we want you to have the property. And we're like, that doesn't make sense. We can't do it. We just can't. We can't carry out our vision. You probably have higher numbers because they're going to build, stacked buildings and tear your stuff down. Maybe not, but we can't afford to do that. So luckily they came back and said, okay, well, we like you guys. So we're gonna keep this going. So we got to keep doing our mission in Little Bohemia. We purposely then said, let's stop for a minute. And a minute has been, 7 years. We didn't want to take our total vision and thought process of what Little Bohemia could be and just keep stamping it on every building. And not everyone was going to sell to us anyways, but we just thought there are a few rare opportunities here. There are 1,200 square foot buildings. There are 2,000 square foot buildings. And if any of you have ever looked for real estate in Omaha on that size, it is nearly impossible. You go down the street, you might get a 1,200 foot bay in a strip mall, but you're not going to get a building with identity that you could have either ownership in or rent. It's just so hard to buy. So we wanted to let other people participate in that. We did find some developers were coming in and trying to buy stuff, so we did jump in a few times and block things, and then resold them to other people. And so, I don't know, again, people are like, that's not what you're supposed to do to make money in this industry, but we've been fine. Our buildings are full, our tenants are happy, and we're happy. So, yeah, I guess that's one of the things we really treasure. I should have moved on to these, I'm sorry. This is what we, if you're in Little Bohemia today, this is what you would see. This is a space we do not own. We're really proud of the retail that's developed in the area. Small retail, boutique retail is so hard. Some of you probably know that. And in Omaha, you see it open and they're like, where'd they go? And so the longevity we've seen of some of these folks with their small businesses in the neighborhood just delights us and makes us happy. This is Izzy's. This was part of the Bohemian Cafe. And within the space, if you really look around, you'll see the old windows from the cafe, you'll see some of the art, you'll see a few things kind of collected through their space. And that was, our nods to honoring the family and the things that, they treasure. All the stuff in the Bohemian Cafe was hand painted on the walls, on the wood, so we paid extra to have the wood pulled off and removed rather than with a sledgehammer. So yeah, it's nice to see that in there. Another thing we did in Little Bohemia, this would have been 2017 is my guess. There was sort of a shift in thought of how you do murals in Omaha, or at least people were trying to get others to listen to this. A lot of real estate people were going, I've got a wall and you're an artist. You should paint it for free. My mom would have been like, no. So we did a public, what did we call it? I don't know. We did a call for artists in Little Bohemia. We put some cash in, we called some neighbors, some other folks. They said, yeah, we want art, and neighbors will help pay for art. It was really pretty easy to do, actually. So we raised the budget. We had Amplify Arts as our partner in this project. So they managed the call for artists. We raised some money to pay them a fee so they could get paid for their work. And then we ended up with some incredible art in the neighborhood. That it's funny, people are like, how long do you think it'll be there? 5 years? And here we are, 7 almost? I don't know, 6. So we've encouraged others to do it in the neighborhood. There's been not as much traction as we'd like to see, so we're trying to do a push on that again. Tiny House Bar, I'm actually one of the folks who's an owner in it. I don't do anything there. Don't try to take credit for it. Megan Malone runs it. She's definitely a wacky creative genius. She was like, we need to get a mural going again. Let's pay for one as Tiny House out in front of the bar. So down there, check it out. There's another cool one. I don't have good photos of it, so I didn't bring them today. And then, after that, I started thinking, okay, we don't have to do huge projects always to make impact. We started thinking about things we could do though that would be still fun. So this is Jack's salon. It used to be, I think the sign said Bang Tan or something out front, but he had the lady painted on the window, if anyone remembers her at all. She's a very seductive lady on the window. I had a ton of people like, how do I cut that window out so I can keep it? Well, I don't know. Anyways, so we tried to sell this building multiple times, and people would put it in our contract and then say, nah, I don't want to buy it. So the guy was like, Jack was like, do you guys want to buy it? And we were like, well, if we did, this is what we'd want to do. Kind of same story. Like, we want to keep what we got, but update it. Not so, not so blondie, weird looking. So Jack believed in our vision, and we bought it. And we went through and painted it black, but we made it look like Darth Vader, basically. And put a real lasting roof on the building that was on that super weird one. I mean, they're so strange. So, we thought it was really fun. What we also were really proud of doing here is that we did this and didn't just go through and kick out the tenants and raise the rents. We were able to do this on our cash flow with the existing tenants. In reality, things go up in cost. So we have to raise rents eventually. It's just the world. Insurance costs some of them are going up 30% to 65% this year. So you as a property owner can't just go, oh, well. But our philosophy has been, let's try to keep the folks that are in there. One of the ladies up front, she's lived there for 15 to 20 years. We don't just want to double her rent and spike her out. It's just, I don't know, I'm going to see her at the grocery store. I do the grocery shopping at home. And she's going to be pissed at me, and I don't want that. So we've tried to be thoughtful of how we do it. Now, when we're going to put it in market rent. That's the reality of the world. We need to pay for that insurance and do what we need to do. But that's been our philosophy of trying to take on projects. Another, I feel like a broken record. This building that you're sitting in, this is the photo of the before. Our lovely little sign here. I miss seeing it outside, but it's nice to see. We call him Wolfie from Wolf Brothers. Natalie came up with that name, I think, or your team did. So he sits obviously in there. He used to sit where he sits would have been in the city right away. So the city said, because you're remodeling this building, you have to take that sign down, which broke my heart. Not everyone on our team thought it made sense to have a cowboy in front of a real estate office. So some people were like, this is fine, Ryan. Anyways, this family that owned the building, they owned it for, nearly 50 years. They owned the business for 70 to 80 maybe. The building's not on the market. We used to office down the street. Kind of in a tucked away spot. We'd really outgrown it. And I called the family and started talking to them and said, what's your future for the business? What's your future for the space? They said, we'd like to move on from it. What do you want to do with it? So we just told them our story. We want to move our real estate company here. I want to keep the building. We probably can't have the western facade on it, which was past its prime. So, they were kind of on a handshake, let's figure this out and do it. So we tackled this building. Inside, we, in essence, gutted it. Mostly what we did was add windows and take off some old drywall, and then built it out to what you see today. I had to sort of fight for this facade. The city likes to see stuff with the multiple stuccos and different colors and all these layers. I was like, no, we want clean and simple. And this is all concrete board, sustainable, it's environmentally friendly. We wanted all of that. So we got it, luckily. And then we took our interior and started to say, what feels right to encourage people who want to come to the office to feel comfortable, feel like they can relax and be real. So it's very homey feeling in our office. At least we like to say so. We've tried to be thoughtful about making spaces where, this is our reception. Sometimes tenants come in and they are on fire because their air conditioning hasn't been working all week, and we can't get it repaired because we're waiting on a part. And they come in, and so we're like, let's give a cool collective space, a calming space for them, welcoming, and treat everyone. Again, it's mostly tenants who will come into our office who like show up unannounced or unexpected. We don't otherwise get a lot of visitors, and we're like, let's give them a space but they're treated nice and welcome, and not just like, tiny little room, just stay in there. We also did some nods to the family. Our little rope light is our nod to the Western theme there. We have tried to put local artists throughout the space. Our pieces by E. Sumtik. On the left is a little bar in the basement. Susan Clark's mother, she passed away kind of when we were getting our machine going, working together. She was, in truth, they had a little bit of, like, I don't want to say conflict, they just hadn't been as close, and they'd just gotten really close again, and she was like this giant supporter of ours. So we got like really weird with naming all the rooms in our office. We're weird people. And we hadn't named our little bar, and because you can book the bar for an event or a meeting. We hadn't named it, so we, Kelsey, right here, our amazing graphic designer, she helped us take the Wolf Brothers sign, make them into a cowgirl, and has a hat with flowers in it because she actually died in her garden. She loved flowers so much. And we named it after her. It's called Hyla's Hideaway. So we have a little logo with the cowgirl, and it's a really special place in our office. And a nice space to have like a creative meeting where you're talking about, you can be talking about something boring, but at least you're in a space where it's like a little more exciting. And then I thought I would also talk a little bit about like the like treasure of finding a spot and like doing something different in it. So these spaces are, the one on the left is the Ashton Building in Miller Commons. It was built in the 1880s, was a warehouse used until 2017, 18. So it was pretty derelict. I gotten the joy to market it for sale. It's a beautiful building, I love it. And I was like, can I have a party in here? Sure. So I did a long table dinner in the space for a group of folks that worked really hard on the project. And there's no kitchen in there. There was barely water at the time. But we got all these chefs who were super excited to do it. And they were like, yeah, we'll figure out how to make this work. And so we had this beautiful like 3-hour dinner in there. And at the end of it, that building was full of bats before we were all, and the bats were like circling. What did I do? But we were fine. Nobody got bit. So the middle one, this is on the deck at Tiny House. So this was like my only real contribution to Tiny House, like, and speak of anyways. So we were like, gosh, winter blows. It's just terrible here. Like, what do we do to make it better? And so I was like, we should have this igloo thing and put it out on the deck and see if people will rent it. And it's been wildly popular. It's a super fun space to be in the winter if you haven't done it before. So it'll be like 10 degrees outside, and you're in there with a couple space heaters and blankets, and it's like, this is cozy. It's super fun. We are working on a backyard plan for Tiny House now. I'm involved in that one, and we're going to try to do kind of more stuff like that. Of course, we're going to use that area creatively in the summer, but we want to figure out like what can you do in the winter around here. People in Minnesota figured it out. Why can't we? So we're trying to think about, again, spaces and using them more purposefully all year long. And I just liked the photo on the right. We throw fun parties sometimes. So this is, again, another like weird warehouse space that was just like, let's embrace it for, this was actually Amplify Arts. They let us, as they were getting moved in, host a party in there. So we just kind of went bonkers decorating it and took like this boring warehouse space into like this cool lively party. And then Amplify Arts made it a really cool thing while they were there. So that, I think, kind of summarizes like my perspective on treasure and the spaces, that exist in our city. I guess like my thought too about like treasure is freedom and ability to maneuver with freedom. Like freedom is some responsibility to our industry. Should have more responsibility, I think. My peers don't like me. And I really love to tackle stuff that people say, you can't do that. And so that's really fun to me. That's like part of the treasure hunt. It's like, what are they telling me they can't do? So that's my thought of treasure. I really, really do appreciate you asking me to be here today and all of you showing up to listen to me ramble for so long.
You know, Ryan, what they're saying we can't do is a pool party right
I
there.
know.
They, as in Susan, who's the responsible adult that has to meet with us all the time.
Right.
Real quick before we wrap up here, does anyone have any questions for Ryan?
What's your favorite place in Little Bohemia?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's tough.
That is a tough one. I'm really torn because I probably should say tiny house. I do love it with all my heart. I really love Archetype. I think his willingness to jump in and help us create something always rings in my heart. And then Isaiah, who owns it, is he's like a grumpy, the kindest person when you really get to know him. He will. Yeah, he stands at that counter. What do you want? But he's a good dude. So it's just the stuff that I've learned about him behind the scenes and in the space he's created for people. The first week Archetype opened, it was where did you all come from? Because you all look different. You look like the folks around the room and here. And it was wild to see that show up in a little bit of email. And so I'm partial to that.
Hands down, best date night in town is Fizzy's to Beer Cave to Tiny House for a nightcap. Just kidding.
It is a fun one.
Do you have peers in other cities that you feel like are sort of just thought partners that you can have a national dialogue around that? These kinds of the same that share your ethos in terms of.
Yeah. I've been really lucky to meet some cool people across the country and have been thinking more about that lately as what's next for us. There's a group in Denver that redeveloped the Union Station train station. We somehow weaseled our way into getting to know that family, and they're interesting folks. They're weird like us in the industry. And they've done some really thoughtful projects in Denver. Now they're trying to do them in Austin, but figuring out how to maneuver the rising cost of everything and crazy rents for people. But they've been an interesting inspiration. There's a group in Detroit I just stumbled upon, and they've got some wild projects that are really cool, repurposed buildings, and do just crazy weird things you can't do that. But they did it. I'm stalking these people. I'm gonna go hunt them down. Make them take a beating.
So stalk people to get what you want.
That is part of being a salesperson. It's a professional stalk.
In a nice way.
In a nice
Not
way.
a good way.
In a nice way.
Also, maybe one more. Yeah, Andrew.
So we've seen Omaha change a ton in the last 10, 15 years. It's almost, when I have friends come back from college, unrecognizable compared to when they left. But where do you see it going in the next 15 years?
Yeah, I hope less you can't do that. It's just Omaha. People won't want that. People won't show up for it. I really hope that attitude just falls off. It feels better, but it's still there. It's a constant battle. I hope that more thoughtful urban development happens, either repurposing buildings or just a little more thought into the materials and the choices and building things with long life. Trying to be careful, but there's a lot of things built that you're is that a 10-year building? 20-year building? Like, what are we going to do with it in that amount of time? It is going to be ugly. It's not great now, so it's going to be like a, that ugly duckling blonde building. So, like, I'd like people to look at it, we don't have to fix so city. And then, when they travel, I'm always looking at spaces. My friends get like, can we just go to where we're going? But like people in other cities, you'll see them spending a little more money on the just a little bit of space to breathe too, and do something weird in it. Like we just stayed in a hotel in New York and they had a roller rink out front. I was like, is anyone gonna do that? It was packed. It was super fun, and people were loving it. Like old to young, everything. I'm like, this is cool. People are loving living this little moment in life. So I feel like we're getting better at that here, but it's still a battle to get people to pay to do that and think about this isn't just an investment that gets you an immediate return. It's kind of a longer haul.
Awesome. Well, let's give Ryan